Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today for this event and also for Discoverfest. This whole week, we have been cranking through, talking to awesome creators and educators and entrepreneurs about all sorts of topics, and it's been a total blast. But thank you for being here today. My name is Jonah from Discover, and today we're talking to Michael from Smarter German. How are you doing, Michael?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thank you. And how are you
Yeah.
doing?
Oh, quite well. Excited to be here. And
Yeah,
for
same.
everyone watching, please hop in the chat. Let us know where you're tuning in from, what you're excited to learn today. And if you're in the replay as well, feel free to go into those comments. We do come back and look at all of those and love to hear what you're thinking. Also, feel free to ask any questions at any time throughout the presentation, but we will have a dedicated Q&A after the presentation where we can answer them. So if we don't answer them right away, we're not ignoring you. We'll get to them in that dedicated Q&A. And if Michael is moving fast or anything, life happens around, you have to get up away from the computer, don't fret. All of this will be available in a replay. It'll be here on the YouTube, it'll be on the Discover event page, and it will also be emailed to you along with the course offer, which we'll talk about later. All of that said, want to do a proper introduction. Like I said, we're talking to Michael, and we're going to talk about how to learn German quickly and properly. You'll find out how simple it actually is to learn German, despite anything you might have heard. And I'll show you how and Michael will show you how to save hundreds of dollars in the process. A little background on Michael. Michael has been teaching German in several had been teaching German in several language schools and countries for over 13 years before he got frustrated with the current system of teaching German. But once he stepped out of the system and he could see clearly what and still is going wrong, he set out to fix it. This course is just the next step in the evolution of learning German. Michael, I don't want to take up any more time, and I'm super excited as I've been learning a little German myself. So thrilled for this event, and I'm going to hand it over to you.
Danke, Jonah.
Yeah,
then let me
bitte.
get started right away. You switch to the presentation, right? Or actually you see it. Yeah?
Yep.
Let me know if anything goes wrong. And let's
It's
get started.
good.
So, yeah, my name is Michael. In case you haven't heard that or seen me before, I really would just give you a quick presentation. This is our new mascot called Smarty. We all fell in love with him and or her, who knows. And you will see more of her or him. Yeah. So we have 3 points to cover today, a presentation which will pretty accurately take 40 minutes. And after that, I will make you a very special offer you cannot reject. Really, you can't, you shouldn't. And we have a Q&A at the end. Yeah, but if you don't get your question through, don't worry. There is many ways to contact me. I'm always available for you to answer any of your questions. So just a little overview over the topics. The first topic will be obstacles in the learning process that, basically every German learner has to go through. Then we talk about speed and how to accelerate the speed of learning. We'll talk about fluency. It's a very common topic. Many people want to be fluent, and we'll also talk about what that means. And one of my dearest topics is motivation, because you might figure that learning German might take a couple of months, if not years. And it's very important to stay hydrated, of course, motivated. Yeah. So I'll talk about that and give you an essence of my experience of the last 30 years, because I've been studying several languages for quite some time before also starting teaching German. And that is a good transition to a little insight about me. I'm basically by trade and by education a German tutor. I study German as a foreign language. And everybody wonders, what does that mean? You are German. Why do you study German as a foreign language? Is basically what I'm doing here. I'm teaching German to foreign people. Yeah. And I did that for many years, and I also enjoyed that. I'm a language hacker, and I enjoy that. What that means is I really love to analyze things, to look at things, understand deeply how they work, and then try to simplify them so that other people that don't have that skill, this analytical skill, can easily comprehend them. I really love to make things simpler without sacrificing quality. I have a kid that speaks 3 languages. It's bilingual by definition, but it learned English on the go. So it was a nice process to witness over the last 20 years. He's now living his own life, but not learning any more languages at this point. There's so much to say about this. And I love psychology. I love the human mind. It's such a complex and fascinating thing. Yeah, I have no better word for it. Let's talk about Hindernisse. And the word Hindernisse, as you can see, contains the word hinder. And if you speak English, you might have heard that it's basically related to being an obstacle, right? So the German language contains many clues that will help you to remember their meaning. And this is one of the things I will actually do. But let's start with the bad methods first, because these are basically the obstacles you have to overcome. One of the worst methods ever invented, although that depends on the context, is the method in which the teacher only speaks German to you and tries to explain extremely complex topics in a language you simply do not understand yet, or at least not fully. It is scientifically proven to be very inefficient, and I can confirm that after 13, well, now it's 20 years on the job. It's a horrible approach. It has advantages for the school that offers it, because they can just put any German there. The German doesn't have to know English or any other language to explain things to you. And it allows me to put just anybody from anywhere into the same classroom, because how can I put Arabic-speaking people in the same classroom as those that speak Yoruba or Spanish? Yeah, it only works if the classroom language is German. And if that's the only possibility, sure, but very often you have a choice. So this is I could go on, but I will make this short and pain-free. Another bad method is to teach people in groups. And I don't go into too much detail, but you have to see that if you teach a group, you kind of have to adjust the speed. You have to find an average speed to take everyone with you. You can try to build little groups that fit together, but that's such a complex process and also takes a lot of time to plan that not many teachers are actually willing to do it or capable of doing it. And then it's also questionable whether their group building methods are necessarily efficient. Many disadvantages of group lessons. Also psychologically, many people are afraid of sharing, of practicing in front of a group. That still happens far too often nowadays, and I totally understand that. A physical classroom, especially in these days, is simply a thing of the past. I understand it's nice to come together with people and to get to know new people, but does it have to be a language learning classroom? If you ask me, I'd prefer to just meet people in a different kind of meetup where maybe we have more than just the interest of wanting to learn German in common. And as I said, at the moment, with this whole up and down with the COVID situation and also the very likely physical risk here, depending on how everything is handled, physical classroom is a thing that I wouldn't go for anymore. And lucky for you, you don't have to. Yeah. And the consequences of all these bad methods are a feeling of insecurity, because if you are taught in German only, you will never fully understand what is being said. You might get an idea of things, but there will always be a doubt, and this doubt will grow if you're unlucky. Yeah, or you will learn to ignore it. But why? Why do I have to leave you with feeling insecure? You will waste a lot of time, because I can explain something in 5 minutes to you that might not get clear with a German-only approach in 2 weeks or a whole month. And of course, you have to travel to the physical classroom. You have to adjust to the speed of the others, or you are lagging behind the faster learners. So you waste a lot of time on that as well. These things are inflexible, as I said about the teaching language. Group lessons, a whole group is less flexible than an individual. And the physical classroom requires you to be at a fixed place at a fixed time. And that is also a problem with certain online classrooms or online live teaching. It's not as flexible as it could be. And all that results in a questionable quality, of course. Now, let's take a look at the solution of these. Lösungen, and you see here again, löse, it's basically lose, yeah, to loosen, to make something loose, to find a solution. It's a nice context, it's really sweet. So if you have a solution, something that was tight, hardened before is now loose and easy to move. So of course the solution to bad methods is good methods. Easiest way to speed up your learning and to avoid all the disadvantages is to explain things in English, to give instructions in English. And then, of course, you practice in German because you want to learn to speak German. That means you have to practice speaking German. There is no discussion about that. That's not my criticism. But I don't have to explain complex matters or give instructions in German because you don't want to learn instructional German. You don't want to learn to give instructions to German learners in German, unless you want to become a German teacher, which I doubt many of you will actually aim for. You need to learn individually. Imagine, well, look at your family, look at your friends, look at how different everybody is in a way. Yeah, there's of course things we can find that we have in common, and luckily so we do have many things in common. But when it comes to learning, you are such a unique being. You have grown up for 20, 30, or in my case 50 years. You have had a very specific education, and what you took from that education no one else has taken. You created this experience. Yeah, so you're a very unique being. Why would you go for a mass approach, in the sense that why should you do the compromise and adjust to an average when there is a possibility to make things basically fit your own needs and capabilities? And proper teaching, what I mean by this, let me explain. There's two kinds of teachers or teachings. In German, it's nicer. We have Lehrer and Belehrer. So I think in English, it's something like teacher versus lecturer. So many people I see that claim to teach German are rather lecturers. They give a lecture. They don't really get in touch with you, and they just read things, or how to say that, they share the rules with you, but they don't show you how to memorize them, or how to, even better, make use of these methods and these techniques, and how to become more independent. Yeah. So anything, if, for example, if I talk to you or give you just sentences to repeat and to study, to memorize, that's not teaching. That's at best lecturing. Yeah. What I've done, for example, with the word Hindernisse and Lösungen, that is teaching. That is showing you, look, this is how the language relates to your native language, or to a language you know very well. And I will also show you the things that are really relevant. You cut off the crap, you cut off the stuff that is not relevant at the moment. Yeah, because there's so much information that needs to be really curated, sorted. So let's look at speed. That's always of interest to people. I have a couple of things to say on speed in general, but let me guide you through this for now. I'm not looking into any artificial enhancement of your learning speed. Yeah, I just want you to naturally learn at the speed that is given to you. Because what usually happens is that there's many obstacles in the way, and once you put the obstacles out of the way, you will actually feel you learn faster, which means you learn at your natural speed. And you want that because you have to maintain that speed or live with that speed for years to come. Yeah, and it makes no sense to rush you through something, to put pressure on you for a longer period of time. For a shorter period, that's always doable. So my first advice is, if something feels overwhelming, or if you feel something is stuck, slow down. Yeah, like you see in these superhero movies, sometimes they slow this down, and they see things like pass by in slow motion. Well, they are actually sped up, but maybe you get the picture nevertheless. If you slow down, you have more time to comprehend, to digest the information. Your brain is a physical tool and it needs to process information. Even though it's light fast, learning is one of the most demanding and complex tasks it has to deal with. Yeah, very often people rush through courses and then they think, oh, I can't speak properly. That's because they haven't taken in the time. I think a good analogy would be like eating fast food. You can eat fast food, but you might not feel as good as if you took your time to chew and to digest. Same with learning. So reducing information, I already mentioned before, so let me skip this. It's an overload of information. Just you need to be exposed to the right amount of information, and you need to actually learn how to find the right amount of information, what really matters. Yeah, and a good course does that. And due to the overload on information, you need a structure. If you don't have a structure, you're just swimming. Yeah, and you might enjoy this kind of feeling. You might be this kind of person. But in my experience, more than 90% of the students I've met in my life, they prefer a structure, and I belong to those as well. I love non-structure for certain tasks and things, but for learning a language, structure is so helpful. It's like having a house. It's so nice to have a house when it rains and when it's cold. So the structure is like your house. It protects you. It maintains the energy in the room, and you can work with it a lot more efficiently and in the end effectively. You need proper tools. And what can I say about proper tools? I can say that showing pictures to you in which there is certain situations and then you have to drag and drop a sentence to those pictures, that is not a proper tool. That's a misunderstood technique. There's plenty of tools that focus on one thing only. And unfortunately, it's like if you eat the same stuff every day, it might not be healthy in the long run, and you might lose interest and your taste over that. So a proper tool simply is something that works a lot more in context of a framework. And one of the most important things related to the German-only teaching is comprehensible input. So there is a theory about this. I'm not talking about this, but it's of course related to this. If you do not understand what you want to learn, you will never learn it. You can, of course, learn to repeat things like a parrot. Yeah, a parrot might learn, God knows what, Goethe by heart. Yeah, but it might repeat that flawlessly, but they will never understand it. So that's, of course, possible, but I don't think that's necessarily what you want. That will be part of your learning as well. It's nice to do some parroting, but ideally you want to understand what comes out of your mouth, right? Most importantly, know thyself. So what do I mean by this? So in context of language learning and teaching, in my case, I aim at helping you develop language awareness. And there's many things you can understand under that term. Above all, I want you to learn how to become aware of how you speak, how you feel while you speak, where you make mistakes, why you struggle. So once you understand all these things, or once you have tools to look into these things, you will naturally get into the flow of things. You will deal with any hardship that comes your way, and it will come your way. You will struggle. This will not just be a joyride. Struggle is fine. There's no problem with that, as long as you know how to deal with it. And knowing yourself is actually one of the best ways to help you deal with struggle. Yeah. See, he agrees. Few words on fluency. Many people think thinking in German is fluency, and in a way there is, to all the points that come now, they're all true, but I have a little limitation or a little add-on to this. So what many people mean when they say, I want to think in German, or hey, I'm thinking in German, they mean the inner monologue that many of us, if not all of us, have in their heads. This voice in your head that when it's completely silent, you sit somewhere and At one point, you realize you're somehow talking to yourself. If you don't do that, by all means, beautiful. And this inner monologue can be in whatever language. I don't really pay attention to the language that I use there, mostly German, I assume, depending on where I am. Thinking itself is a process that is beyond words, I'm pretty sure, but this is what I reckon many people mean. Then, of course, the aim is to speak without thinking. You don't see me think, and I don't catch myself thinking before the English words get out of my mouth, and I still understand them. So, and what this also means is that while you speak, you do not consciously apply any rules, because that's near to impossible, if not impossible. Try to speak to someone while in your head, think from 1 to 10. Yeah, not listening. Listening, you can do many things at once, but so try to do that. It's impossible. So your aim will be to speak without thinking, basically fluent like I do now in English. And then, of course, speaking without making mistakes. How wonderful. I'm not aware of many mistakes I make in English. I do make them, I know that, because I get feedback. So I also don't aim at speaking without making mistakes. Yeah, and if I make a mistake, it's beautiful. If someone points that out to me, I might learn it. Someone might have to point it out 5 to 10 times or 100 times, and then I learn it. Yeah. So it's also a good sign if you make few mistakes. Fluency is not necessarily defined by making no mistakes, but making a reasonable amount of mistakes. Yeah, you can see that when you speak to people who have been living in your country for many years, and you hear a couple of mistakes, but somehow they're still fluent, and it's enjoyable to talk to them. Yeah, it's not necessarily necessary to sound like a native. Come on, natives have like 20 years of education in the language, almost daily exposure, depending on where they grew up, school education. It's not an aim to achieve, if you ask me. So, and the range of vocabulary a native has normally is far beyond anything that people can do in their lifetime if they have a regular life next to learning German. So that shouldn't be the aim, but of course, natives are usually fluent. So these are all related to fluency, but if you are a beginning German learner, you don't have to bother with all this, yeah, or worry about this. This is stuff that will set in somewhere in B2 and or C1 level. If you're not familiar with this level, there is a Wikipedia article on the CERF, the Common European, or FR, frame of reference. And there they describe what these letters mean. So B2 is actually the level in which you can have a relaxed conversation, work in that language. And C1 goes a step further and allows you to study certain things. So B2 is an aim that is worth going for. But in the first 3 levels, which are A1, A2, B1, this is, don't worry about this. Just do your job, do your work, and do it continuously. You'll be fine. Yeah. Now, let me summarize what I think fluency is. It's a limited process. At one point, you will be fluent, yeah, and then you might still find bubbles here and there in which you are not fluent. You can aim at becoming fluent in a certain bubble, which is maybe a different field of interest, but might not be necessary. So there's an end to it. So it's not an endless, unachievable goal. And mistakes are actually the waymarks. You need mistakes in order to become fluent. There might be approaches that try to prevent mistakes in the learning process, but that is just beyond my understanding. Yeah, a mistake is a gift. A mistake is an accelerator once you learn from it. Otherwise, of course, it's not. And here's a beautiful phrase from a tea bag this morning: master your mind and master your tongue. The biggest problem beginners especially have is expectations, is their mindset. Many people actually want to skip the learning process and instead would rather take a pill and be at the end and speak German. Unfortunately, this is not how it goes. It's a process, as I said, it's a path or a journey, I like to call it. So set your mind right and your expectations right, and then you can do the practice. Of course, you do not start only with the mind, you do everything at once. And I, for example, show this to all my, how do you call them, students. Yeah, so many terms. And here's a beautiful little phrase, das Ziel ist im Weg, the aim is in the way. Yeah. So while it's good to have an aim, you shouldn't be completely focused on the aim and lose sight of the beautiful landscape in which you're moving, which is the learning process, because learning is a wonderful process, especially when you learn German. Yeah. So you're dealing with an immensely satisfying, but also challenging experience of yourself. Yeah. And why would you just ignore this and just skip it and jump somewhere to be done with it? It's an attitude you might choose. I'm just sharing there is a different way to see things. A couple of tips how you could get to fluency and how to deal with these insights is that you shouldn't force things. If you try to force things, it's like pulling the grass to make it grow faster. You don't have that in English, I think, but it might be a German one. It's beautiful. But you get the image, I hope. Yeah, don't force things. Try to find your natural speed, like I said in the beginning. Get the obstacles out of the way. And one of the obstacles is this idea of having to get somewhere quickly, even though all the signs point at the impossibility of this goal. So keep track of your goals and expectations, and you will be fine. Input first, output last means that you need a lot of input. If you know not a single German word, it's impossible for you to speak German. That's logical, right? By input first, I don't necessarily mean learning grammar rules. Grammar rules are deeply satisfying, but they are not necessary at all. It's not necessary at all that you can explain any grammar to anyone. And if you ask many native speakers to explain the grammar of a certain point, they might remember something from elementary school, but they also might not be capable of doing so. And still, they speak fluent German. Yeah. Of course, I teach grammar rules, and because they are very helpful as a tool, but not when you speak. Yeah. Only afterwards, when you actually analyze your output, and then you can learn from your mistakes again. And of course, once you have the input, you need to practice it. Yeah, it's like a good dough. You have to really knit. How do you call this? Knit it. Yeah, like really squeeze it and make it really soft and nice. And then you can bake a beautiful bread or pizza, whatever you want to do with it. You need to practice, but practice blindly doesn't do the job. You need to practice intelligently with feedback and also while being aware of how you feel, how you're doing, whether what you're doing makes sense or whether you're capable of taking it in still, or whether you need a break. So practice needs to be controlled, it needs to be analyzed, it needs to be fed back to you. Yeah. And that feedback needs to be intelligent. I can, of course, when you say a wrong sentence, I can say, no, you have to say like this. Yeah, or I give you the correct word. But that's horrible. That's putting someone down. I say, I know, and I tell you now, and now you have to do as I say. And many people feel put down when they get corrected this way, or what they do is they let it in here and out here. So this kind of feedback is absolutely horrible. Very few people remember these things and usually associated with a rather painful experience. So intelligent feedback points at the issue at hand and gives you at least a chance to find the mistake yourself. This trying alone will improve your German learning experience significantly and also have a positive impact on your motivation. Yeah, and intelligent feedback is also more or less immediate. Yeah, not a week later. It's almost like training a dog. If your dog pees on your nice rug and you wait a day or two to punish him, he will be confused. Yeah, and I say he because dogs in German are masculine, der Hund. And just a little bit of realism here. Learning a language to a level of relaxed fluency with speaking like I do takes you 1 to 2 years of constant effort. If your effort is a little bit less regular or less intensive, it will take you 3, 4, 5 years, and that's absolutely fine because it's a beautiful journey to embark on. Why do we want to go on the Autobahn? Yeah, except for the feeling of speed, but that's a different topic. So 1 to 2 years, if not longer, requires you to stay motivated. And I can tell you right away, if you are human like I possibly am, motivation will always be like this. Very few people are like, yeah, it's not a straight curve. There will be times and days in which you really don't want to do your homework or your work, and you either just do it nevertheless, or you just take a break. Motivation is a very vulnerable, very flexible thing. So having a little bit of support in this process is absolutely essential. And of course, that can be done, for example, by interesting materials like, if you have a boring textbook or a boring presenter, it's much more difficult to learn German. I met a guy once who said, hey, I learned 2,000 words in German with a dictionary. I have my deepest respect for that person because that's the most boring approach I've heard, but he had nothing else at hand. So you can learn with boring stuff, but it's much nicer with interesting materials. Comprehensible input I mentioned, make sure you understand. Nothing more frustrating than not understanding what's going on. And a little bit of frustration is okay, but if it is frustration after frustration after frustration, your motivation really takes a toll. And that is, of course, connected to experiencing success. Yeah. If you don't see any progress, let's say you can't even make an appointment after 6 months of intensive courses, then very likely you might feel disappointed or you have prepared wrongly for that task. But it's nice to have a little bit of progress to maybe pass an exam or to do an exercise and come out of it successful. Intelligent feedback we talked about, and learning on your own terms basically means, why would you want to be at a fixed place at a fixed time if or when you could also just learn anytime, anywhere, as long as you have an internet connection, of course. That's unfortunately still a requirement, until I find a way to print my course on a DVD. So learn on your own terms, because when you wake up in the morning, like if you're like me a little bit, I have mornings in which it's easy to get up early, and others that I would like to stay in bed. And when I learn, I'm not that regular, but maybe your learning or ideal learning time is in the afternoon or in the evening or at night. And all these classes that are offered that are live with a tutor, they are usually in working hours, right? And sometimes in the evenings as well. But they're very limited. And why would you want to adapt to that if it's not necessary? Yeah, costs you a lot of energy and also doesn't help your motivation. What helps, of course, is to have a community, people that suffer with you or that also share their success with you and show you, hey, it's possible if you just stay on just a day longer. And they also kind of hold you accountable in a way because you want to remain part of this community. So you do your work. It's definitely one of the best ways to stay in the game for as long as possible. So that was the presentation. A quick run through. You can go through it in all peace. In the replay, you can also just work with a free trial of my courses and take 3 days to really thoroughly work through one lesson or two. It's enough to see how it works. And to make your decision a little bit easier, even to give my work a try, I make you an offer you cannot refuse. Yeah, it's an offer I've never made before, and God knows whether I make it again. So here we go. To give you a little insight in how we relate to all the other language schools out there. Smarter German is a language school, but we do not have live teaching. We do not have tutors because you do not need them anymore. Yeah, it's a thing of the past. All the reasons I showed you, you can do on your own. That is my working life's goal, to make you independent from all these things. You can work with a tutor if you think you have to and have too much money, and all these disadvantages are not a problem. No problem. But in my experience, there's very few good tutors out there that are available and also affordable, and therefore it's best if you can do most of your work on your own. Yeah, and with Smarter German, you are fine, you are set. So A1 to B1 with Smarter German takes roughly 480 hours. And I show you how it compares to the other schools in the end. You don't travel and you don't have homework. With online teaching, you also don't have travels, but you might have homework. Usually it's 300 hours if you count traveling and homework in. So physical schools are a lot more demanding time-wise. And usually you'd pay $747 for all 3 courses. A1 to B1 is 3 courses. And this price is exclusive VAT, but it's also a single payment. It's one time. It's not per month. It doesn't matter whether it takes you 6 months or 6 years. It's always this price. You pay once, you're done. In schools, you pay, in the cheap school, the Volkshochschule here, you pay 1,000 for the levels A1, A2, B1. It's usually 6 months. And if it takes you 7 months, it's $200 or $300 more. And the most expensive competitor of mine, which I will not name, will even charge 7K from you for the same levels, and only if you can do it in 6 months. So it's 90% more than what we charge. I'm not kidding, you can look this up. Yeah, it's mind-blowing to me. So I always say you pay for the marble and for the name, because they have really nice locations, at least here in Germany. So if you then go further and go to C1 level as well, you add another 360 hours because it's only 2 levels instead of 3, and you pay another $500, and which, no, that's not correct. The $500 for 2, that's not correct. It should be double. It should also be 1,000. Same here, should be 7,000. It's the same basically as that. Before I only had this for B2 here. Yeah. So double this on the top, and you get the price you need to pay to get from A1 to C1. I'll talk about A1 to B2 in a second. So the total price with Smarter German would be normally $1,200 plus VAT, depending on where you're living. And it takes you roughly 840 hours. This number, of course, is a very rough guess. It might take you 1,000, it might take you 600. It really depends on how well you learn and where you are and how life is treating you. But with a language school, it would take you at least 1,320 hours, a lot more. That's 37% more. Yeah, and that includes the travel and the homework, so it might be less if you're not traveling. But if they don't give you homework, that would be unusual. Yeah. So worst case for me, you need the same amount of time in a school, but usually you need more time due to the bad methods applied. Now, you won't pay $1,200 with Smarter German today. You will pay 60% less. And that means in numbers, $500 for 5 courses, A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, once, not monthly. I know it's a ridiculous number. You pay this once and you have lifelong access to all 5 courses. Or you pay them in 3 installments. Sorry, I don't do this back, but you $166. You pay 2, basically you pay 2 courses because they would usually cost $500. But you get 5 for it. This is a unique Discover Fest offer, and trust me, you will not see that anytime soon again. That's a ridiculous offer, and hope you take advantage of it. And if you don't aim at going to C1, I have another offer for you. I have a plan B1. Actually, it should be plan B2 because No, B1, sorry. So if you just want to go for the groundworks, which is A1 to B1, I always call this the elementary school level. You see the numbers here from before. It's a little bit different, a little bit less. But you also get a little discount. It's a little bit smaller because we really want to push the whole thing. You get 50% off, which means 374 ex VAT. Or you pay in 2 installments of $187. This is US dollars. Yeah? And the installments mean after you paid your second installment, you will not be charged again. You have paid off your course. This is not a subscription. You will not be forced to cancel anything, nothing. It's really, I know it's unusual, but this is how I would like things to be. And that's why I operate this way. Just to give you a little more insight in why Smarter German, in my perception, outperforms the others. First of all, you get lifelong access in language schools and many other online things, which I do not really consider schools. But let's say you want to work with an online course of sorts, you pay every month. Yeah. And, you might just let it slide, and you might in the end pay as much for Bubble as you do for Smarter German in the end, without getting the same quality. With Smarter German, you save time, according to the numbers you saw there, depending on comparing to a live physical language school, it might be a little bit less with an online school. But due to the techniques applied with Smarter German, you will save a significant amount of time. Because all the other courses are slowed down by design, among others by really using bad teaching techniques, and bad in the sense of inefficient. You save up to 90% of your money if you would go for the market leader, with a 7K for A1 to B1. And you will also pay whether you are ill or not with any other school. With Smarter German, you are done. You have it off your chest. You paid it once, lifelong access. Beautiful. And if you wonder what lifelong access is, that means as long as I'm alive. So if you want to make sure I live long, send chocolate. Not the dark kind and not vegan. The rest is fine. And no fancy stuff in there, just plain. It's fine. So lifelong access, really, I give my best to stay alive and also make the course survive me for a couple of years. That should be enough for you to learn German. I hope so, at least. I think it's a worthy bet on my lifespan. Smarter German allows you to individualize your learning. It's a very smart structure that really is flexible. You can easily fit the course into your daily schedule, into your possibilities. You can do that in a group. A group is a fixed institution. You have to be there whenever they want you to be there. And you can't change the group necessarily, but you can change your individual learning experience. You can try Smarter German for free, 3 days. That's unheard of in other institutions. Ask your language school whether you can try that. Online courses of sorts, let's call them language tools. They allow free trials, but they are not comparing with Smarter German because they usually only have one technique and focus on one specific thing. It's not the same. Plus, we offer a 30 days money back guarantee, and I can tell you that at roughly an average 5% of the people ask for the money back, but that's mainly because they've changed their mind, life got in the way, or they missed the entry point, something happened there. It's really rarely that someone doesn't like the structure, and usually if someone reaches out to me with any struggle, I'm able to help them on board. So I'm even doing that personally if I have to, because I really want you to enjoy my work. It's gorgeous, gorgeous material. And ask the others, the language school, whether they give you 30 days money back guarantee. I don't think so. That was the presentation, pretty much on time, I would say. Let's go to the questions. I turn off the presentation. Jonah, you can take over or guide me through the rest.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your perspective on the language. There was a few things you even said, just methods of learning language that I've tried, but didn't even think about why it doesn't work. And you outlined really well why it's like, especially taking things slow. I think like Duolingo or whatever it is, you always just want to be like, how do I learn the language by tomorrow? But it's a crazy expectation to have.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that perspective. And for everyone watching, please hop in the chat, ask any questions that you might have. Also, the links for Michael's course are all down in the description. They'll also be emailed to you along with those with the replay. And those offers are just available for, I know, about a week. So you can think about it a little, but don't think too long on it. And Michael, I wanted to start with well, some questions are rolling in. My mom is Swiss, so this question came to heart, but also I've had this experience too with just so Catherine writes, my husband is native Swiss and can't explain why something is wrong with my German, just that it is. So I know in Switzerland they speak a whole different like dialect of German, right? And it's its own kind of I don't even know if it's a dialect or its own language. But within Germany, are there a lot of different dialects? Are there different styles of German to learn? Or are you it's pretty unanimously like if you learn quote unquote high German, you're set in all of Germany?
Well, if you want and have nothing better to do, you can learn all, God knows, 20 dialects. Maybe there's 30 of them. I haven't studied that. And they're gorgeous. I wish I had learned one. No, I have a little touch of flat German, which is near Dutch. You learn High German, and everyone in Germany that wants to understand you, and also in Switzerland, will understand you. If they don't want to understand you, then it doesn't matter what dialect you speak. So, and Swiss German is something that is a little different. We have subtitles on German TV when we watch this, but it makes sense to dive into that around mid and B2 or after B2 in all Ps, because it's fine to have the basics right. And Swiss German is based on German. I'm not sure whether it's a dialect or a language already. I know that Austrian, which is Bavarian as a dialect, it's the same Bavarian as in Bavaria. That's a dialect for sure. But Swiss German, I have to say, I would have to look that up. My guess is it's a dialect.
Right. And
but then, yeah.
Oh yeah, well, just curious. Like I didn't know there were that many like dialects of German. That's so cool that it's so varied even within the.
Look at the U.S.
Yes, but I think we take for granted when in the U.S. when we look at smaller countries, we don't. We take for granted that even within that there's enough like wild history and geographic difference that you could have so many dialects. Where it's easier for us to be like, sure, people from Minnesota don't talk like people from Texas,
But the differences between the German dialects might be bigger than the differences between the US ones. I'm not studied in this, but my assumption would be that.
It probably is, because even still, it's like, I'm never going to have it's going to be mild problems going from like Seattle to California as maybe even smaller areas in Germany. But I just wanted to start with that. We do have some good questions rolling in here, so I want to pop in. This is specifically about the course. Daniel's asking, how does the course improve your speaking in general? So I imagine he's asking like the interaction with the course, the format. Do you get a talk? Does it get to correct you? How's that work?
Yeah. So as it's an online course and there is no human being correcting you when you speak, which I also don't recommend anyhow, there's a couple of techniques I have put in there, and these are not necessarily new inventions by me. I just optimized them and put them nicely together. So what you do is you have a speaking drill, a pattern drill, in which you, in a little monologue, you have a dialogue with yourself, basically. You practice grammar patterns. And that relates to what I said. You cannot use a grammar rule while you're speaking, but with this technique, you will internalize the grammar rules and speak proper German. You will apply the rule without thinking. And that will help you become fluent. That will help you prepare the muscles, the synapses in your brain. Your brain needs to make connections, and that takes time. So I have 3 to 4 such exercises, and depending on your level, they become a bit more complex. You will speak to yourself, and there is tools that transcribe what you say. It's good enough feedback. Especially in A1 to B1, what do you want to talk about? You don't have the words to do so. You have to learn. You have to. Your German is crap, so nobody wants to listen to you, and that's why you usually have to pay someone to listen to you. But you can do. But why would you? And yeah, I'm not saying that to put you down. It's just what it is. In everyone, no matter how smart, will sound like a child or like someone stumbling. That's the part of the expectations. Don't expect to have a conversation. And what kind of conversation do you want to have? So practice that with yourself. Prepare for the real situation for when you meet a German-speaking person or Swiss German-speaking person. And then you have a base. It will not go fluent right away, but you have a base. You have something to work on, to polish. And that's what the course provides. I provide you with really sweet exercises and techniques and tools that are, of course, freely available. And I'm creating or having created my own tools that make this process even easier. It's a beautiful experience if you can let go of the expectation that you should be capable of having a normal conversation anytime soon, because that's not going to happen. I can tell you from my experience, also from me learning a language.
Yeah? Right. You have to get to a certain point where it's a joy to talk to you, right? That's the.
And then just one last thing, because people always ask that. Even if you're in B2, and again, there is reasons why it makes sense to pay someone to practice speaking with you. And that is preparation for a speech, for a job interview, or for an exam. In these cases, I'm all in. But if you pay someone to have a conversation with you about something that you're interested in, I always compare that to paying for sex. Totally fine. Yeah, it's not the same thing. You want to have a conversation with someone that actually values you, that wants to connect with you, and not with 8 others at the same time. Yeah,
right.
It's fine, and it has an effect, but it's nice
not
to do this with real people.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know it's not solely a way to learn a language, but do you recommend even just like self-immersion? When I'm trying to learn a language, I'll just like listen to a book I know, like The Hobbit or something, in that language, whether or not I understand it. But do you recommend that as well, just to like get used to hearing it? And
yeah, absolutely. This is one of 20 tools that I have implemented in my course.
Oh, great. Okay.
But if this is the only thing you do, then no, of course not. Yeah?
Right.
You can't just bake bread with flour, so you need a lot of other, 2 more ingredients, but still. Yeah? Right. And then you need to know how to bake it. But yeah, sure. No, that's beautiful. I love to do that. It's listen as much as you want, and you don't need to understand it. You get tuned into the German language by doing so. And I call this passive listening. Beautiful thing to do. Yeah.
Even just to like figure out where words are separated and getting used. Want to get through some of these other ones here. So Synthoju, I hope I'm saying your name right, but I'm probably butchering it. I'm so sorry. But was asking, good day, sir. Can we clear the Goethe C1 and test off with Smarter German?
Yeah, test off. See, any exam. I have a B1 exam prepping course that specifically prepares you strategically for the exam, but not content-wise. So the content you get from my courses, but then you need the strategy. Exams are pretty dull things. They are to prepare for. Yeah, you repeat, you work through sample exams, and you analyze the mistakes, and you learn from them, as always. So I haven't made that the core thing of my courses. That being said, the C1 course is pretty close to doing exams, because it was created by someone in cooperation with me who has been teaching, preparing people for the C1 exam for 20 years, possibly. So that is pretty close to that, but it is not specifically designed to help you go through the exam. But once you are C1, all you have to do is work through sample exams at one point. And if that causes you trouble, then maybe your preparation, like the years before that got you to the C1 level, have been a little bit messy. So the answer is yes, it could, if you prepare for the exam specifically by working through sample exams. Yeah, then but of course I don't guarantee that. And but C1, from what I can judge, and I've worked many years in that field, is doable. TestDaf is such an outstanding, outrageous way of testing things. I don't offer any TestDaf preparation,
Right.
but it's basically the same. Get 100
Right.
sample exams, work them all through, you'll be fine.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then, so next question here, D Roof. The question is there a possibility where I can talk to someone as a pen pal post learning the course? So do you either offer any community as part of the course, I think is the question, or just do you have any recommendations of how to do that?
Yeah, the question is it about talking or writing? Because Penpal is a writing, right? So I have a community here, and it's growing and growing. We started last year, and there is people that come together and learn. It's a closed group. I don't know how they are doing. From my own experience of these groups, I can say they don't last long. It's difficult to discipline a group if there is no leader, if I may say the word. But a group needs some kind of cohesion, and just wanting to learn German might not be enough, depending on how you found each other. If these are friends of yours already, by all means, go for it, because you have a strong connection and you hold each other accountable. But if these are random people from the internet, no matter whether they come from Smarter German or God knows where, they might last a month or two, maybe thin out then, and after 4 to 6 months, the group is dead. Yeah, of course, exceptions prove the rule. So you can ask for someone there, and there is certainly also platforms on the internet where you can find Penpals specifically. You can ask that in the community, and I will, if you are a customer already, and I might Google that, but you can also just Google it, because that's what I would do. I've seen that in the past. There's Penpal pages. So yes, that exists, but not specifically. We do not facilitate that, because it's, in my experience, it doesn't work like that. Yeah, it's a bit like Tinder. It's nice, and some people might find the love of their life, but somehow I think the majority doesn't. And the same with that. Yeah, it's fine. Maybe it's a business idea. Tinder for pen pals.
Yeah, there you go. Hang on to that one. Okay, got time for just a couple more questions, but I'm doing an online school, which I really like, but I would like more input. So I imagine in German, doing online school in German already. Would you recommend doing this in parallel, or would it be confusing? So is this a good supplemental course, or do you really want to be like focusing only on this when you're learning the language?
Well, so you want to have an affair next to me, right? So I can't say. It depends on you. It depends on the other course, I have to say. You can, of course, do just as little as half an hour with my course. My recommendation would be that you simply try. You can. You have at the moment we have a 3-day free trial, and we might change that to the first lesson free or something at one point. But for now, you can try it for 3 days and see how it goes. That should already give you a little input. You can also purchase the course and have 30 days of trying it in all peace. And if you realize it doesn't work, you just ask for a refund. It's fine with me. Yeah, but that's a little bit of a deposit you have to give there. But there is really no issue with me and refunds. I'm fine with that. Yeah, so give it a try and see for yourself. It's the best thing to do. And yeah, because I can't say it. It's tricky. It's tricky because my course can be demanding if you really want to commit to it. Yeah, it's a bit of a monogamous approach. But when it comes to teaching, that doesn't mean you cannot listen to things or watch things in German besides that. But when it comes to teaching, it might indeed confuse you. But give it a shot.
Yeah. Awesome. And then there's 2 more great questions. So I want to get to both of these here, and then we'll. But Janice asked, my brother moved to Germany from the US. And isn't there a test you have to pass in order to continue living in Germany? And what level of German would be required for that? Do you know about that? That may be a very technical, like border question, but
yeah, roughly what I hear that people usually require is B1 level, but it depends on whether he comes here as a spouse. Then A2 might be enough, or A1 depends on the country. The embassy should be able to answer that, but B1 is a level good aiming for. At least this is what the so-called integration classes we offer here in Germany aim for. Yeah, but if you fail it once, you still have a chance to get to that later. So B1 is definitely very likely that you need that from the US.
Right. And then last question, and thank you everyone for hopping in and asking so many questions. But we do just have to wrap up for time. But this question is a little dear to me because, like, my mom didn't teach me German, or she tried to teach me German when I was younger, and then since my dad doesn't speak it, and then my sister didn't, like, this is totally a hard problem if you're used to speaking English with the people around you. But Miss Kargas, my boyfriend is German, but we are used to communicating in English. And even when we try to get some practice in German, it feels very unnatural, and I'm usually not continuing. How to overcome this so that that initial just instinct to, like, if you're not communicating well, to go back into English or your native language.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing. It's not easy to overcome. It has to do with expectations. It has to do with your relationship, because it's you have a modus operandi, operandi, or whatever it's called.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so difficult to diverge from that. My recommendation: I have a YouTube video somewhere that really, I'm not sure what it's called, but maybe Practicing German with My Partner, in which I go into detail. My recommendation is do 10 minutes a day. And if it naturally expands to 15, fine. But do 10 minutes a day.
Set that time aside,
fixed. Yeah. And then it's fine. It's limited. It's an exercise. It's very clear. It has nothing to do with your private life. You don't have to, and don't do complex things in that language at this point. Nothing that is relevant. Yeah, have a small clock, and you can try something that you have been discussing already. And if you want to look deeper into the things that inhibit you here, I have a course that's called the Infinite Motivation Training. It's on my homepage somewhere, and it's a beautiful course, and it helps you to look into the obstacles, into this what might be unconscious at this point, and it will just show it to you, and that alone does the job. Yeah, it doesn't mean it's solved instantly, but it shows you what you would have to work on if that really was your goal. Beautiful course. It's same rules, 30-day money-back guarantee. It's also a lot cheaper than the language course. Go for that. Infinite Motivation Training is the name, and this goes far beyond motivation. But the little tip hopefully helps in the YouTube video if you find it. Yeah. Otherwise, write me an email. I look it up for you.
Yeah. Well, and so that's just my last question. Best place to find you or ask you any questions if people still have them?
If you are already a customer, maybe after today or after Discoverfest, use the community. That's the best place to find me. Any so-called pre-sale questions, please write me an email. Don't use Facebook. I don't like Facebook. I will, of course, check it, but email is fine. Yeah. But if you are already working with Smarter German, the community is the place where I hang out the most and where I enjoy sharing my knowledge the most. Yeah.
Awesome. Love it. Well, we do have to wrap up, but thank you so much, Michael. It's been a pleasure learning more just about, I love the mechanics of, like, what is the best way to learn language? There's so many ways, and it's cool always to see a new system that isn't the system that was beaten into us in high school that didn't work. So I appreciate that very much. And thank you everyone so much for being here today and for watching. And please like and subscribe to the Discover channel if you had a good time today. We're trying to bring more creators, entrepreneurs, and just general learners and people who teach into this community and in these events so we can all grow in every way. And check out the link in the description. We have a full schedule for the whole week of Discoverfest. You can go watch all of the past events, and you can also see we have 3 more today and 4 tomorrow. So we're cranking through this week and having a blast. Thank you once again, Michael, and thank you all for being here. We'll see you all soon.
Thank you too, Jonah, and everyone joining here. Yeah, have a lovely evening. Schönen Abend.
You as well.
Danke.